For all of the lives that are taken, they can never be replaced. But still, Jaja chose to remember my face. Though I never lived like you wanted, I'm still mindful of what you taught me. So now I beg and plead, I'm on my bending knees. 'Cause Father, you rescued me. I've got the scars to show. I barely made it along life's road. 'Cause when my life got dark, he was the only spark. He was the light at the end of the road.
All right, folks, Dwayne Stevenson. Song right there just resonates with me. It's so, the message is uplifting, the vibes, man, the consciousness in his voice, the message, the words. It's just a powerful, powerful song. Love it, love it. So anyway, folks, we're gonna dive right in. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7, and we're gonna do extemporaneous. We're gonna do an extemporaneous examination here. We're gonna do the forensics extemporaneously. Again, we're gonna do a spontaneous, impromptu, off the fly extrapolation of 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. Again, we're gonna go off the fly. Impromptu, no pre-advanced or premeditated preparation. We're gonna see if we can just let the Spirit guide us on this one. Now, verse 7 says this in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. We walk by faith, not by sight. We walk by faith, not by sight. I walk by faith, not by sight. Now, let's do what's called we're gonna employ some secular wisdom here. We're going to employ some Socratic method, right? A Socratic method of reasoning, which is you ask why until you can arrive at an answer, right? You use inquiry, or so we would say, why does Paul say walk by faith as opposed to by sight? Then we're going to use what's called, so we're going to employ the Socratic method. Then we can employ the scientific method. Scientific method is where you make an observation, you formulate some kind of how can I say this? You formulate an opinion, right? You formulate your take. Then you test that theory. You test it, the hypothesis. You test it to see how truthful it is, and then you come up with a result and a logical conclusion, right? So that will be the scientific method. So we're gonna do that right now. Yeah, we're gonna do that right now. So, and then we can do a deductive reasoning where we can look at both premises, major and minor, and come up with an inference. So we're going to do all that right now. Now let's check this out. The word faith is interesting, right? Because faith, a lot of people would like say faith. Faith is very tricky because faith means you believe in something that you can't see, feel, or touch. Again, I'll say it again. Faith means to believe even though there is nothing in front of you to give you reasons to believe. Believing without proof. Believing without evidence. The actual scripture says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So faith means to believe in what you can't see, feel, or touch. In other words, it defies logics. It defies the five senses. It's outside of the five senses. This is faith. So this is the why part. Why does Paul say we walk by faith as opposed to sight? Sight is completely the opposite of faith, because sight allows you to see. And by you seeing something, you have more belief in it because you can observe it, right? Again, we're using the Socratic method. We ask why. Then we're going to use the scientific method, which is we're going to test an experiment with the hypothesis. The hypothesis is the educated guess that we formulate based off the observation. So we're observing Paul saying walk by faith, not by sight. Why? Socratic method, right? Why? You ask why until you arrive at a conclusion. Why does Paul say we walk by faith? Well, because if you go back to verses 4, verses 4, 5, 6, you go back to verses 4 and 5, Paul says the things that we see, here's the contrast, right? Again, employing the Socratic method. Here's the why. The things that we see are temporal. The word temporal means it can be translated or can be interpreted as to mean temporary, something's temporary, or things that pertain to the natural realm. So Paul say, so the question is, why does he say faith as opposed to sight? Because the things that we see are temporal. So all that you and I see around us, everything in the physical realm, it pertains to the natural realm, and it's also temporary. So this is why he says we walk by faith, not by sight. And here's the why. Why faith as opposed to sight? Because sight pertains to things that you can see, feel, touch, and taste. That's all related and limited to the finite realm that we are occupying right now. So that's why, right, we're using the Socratic method. Then the Socratic method again will say, okay, let's continue to further test that. Well, why are the things pertaining to this world temporary? Right now, we're going to keep asking why. We're drawing out conclusions from the Socratic method of why. Okay, well, why Paul said the things of this world are temporary is because, one, the things of this world, all things that pertain to this world can be destroyed. All things of this world can be destroyed, can be broken down to matter. Everything can be broken down to its basic common denominator, basic elements, which is matter. So everything can be broken down. So if everything can be broken down, that means everything that was constructed can be destructed. I'll say it again. Everything that was constructed can be restructured and destructed. So this is why Paul does not say walk by sight as opposed to faith. He says walk by faith, not by sight, because everything we see is temporary. Well, why is it temporary? Because it can be destroyed. Well, why can it be destroyed? Because it was manufactured. And the first three letters in the word manufactured is M-A-N, man. Man, therefore, factured, or man formed that which pertains to this world. We're now talking about faith. Sight, that things you see, are manufactured. You see how we're using the same Socratic method. We're the whys. We're asking why. That's called the Socratic method. We're cross-examining the scriptures to see if we can find inconsistencies or contradictions in the arguments put forth by the Apostle Paul. Thus far, we don't find any contradictions. There's no inconsistencies using the Socratic method, right? We're in a courtroom right now. We're in a courtroom. We're cross-examining the scriptures to see if there's any inconsistencies, if there's any inaccuracies, inadequacies, erroneous theological sentiments purported by Paul, the apostle. Thus far, as his attorney, right? As his attorney, and we're cross-examining, we're doing what's called critical analytical thinking. We are assessing, evaluating, and formulating opinions, okay? So far, the jury is with me. The jury is with me on this. We don't have any inconsistencies. There's no illogical, erroneous, fallacies here. So far, everything is adding up. Now we're going to continue. We're going to continue. We're in court right now. You know, Paul is on trial and he's winning, and I'm the attorney. I'm the lawyer. So we're seeing why we're doing a contrast and comparison. Why faith as opposed to sight. So we're looking at sight first, and we're breaking down and putting that in context. Then we're going to look at faith next, and then we're going to wrap this whole thing up and come to a conclusion. Come to a definitive answer. Okay, so we see why Paul says sight, right? Because the things that we see are temporary, and temporal. Temporal means pertaining to this life, this world, secular, mundane, earthly. Why? Because these things can be destroyed. Well, why not to believe in them? Why not to put faith in them? Because why not to have belief in the things because they can be destroyed? Why can they be destroyed? Because they were manufactured. Well, why are they manufactured? Because M-A-N, the first three letters in the word manufactured, is man-made. And anything that is man-made can be destroyed, can be destructed, restructured, reconstructed. I don't think that made sense. Reconstructed? No, destructed. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. My brain is spinning. So Paul here is showing the contrast and comparison. Why not sight, right? And we're using Socratic method, right? Now, let's look at the contrast. Let's look at faith. Why faith? As I made mention in the first minute of this video, faith is that which you cannot see, feel, touch, taste. It does not pertain to the five senses. Faith is believing in the unbelievable. Faith is taking God at his word. Faith is knowing in the unknowing. Faith is a biblical, let's say, jargon. Faith would be a biblical jargon. It's meaning that word faith, it's couched, its context would be within the Bible, the ecclesiastical realm. It would be within the theological atmosphere. It would be in the language or the pantheon of theological lexicon. There you go. I'm trying, folks. I'm thinking here. So let's do this, though. Let's find a word that's more relatable. Let's find a word that's relatable to the everyday man. A word that I can walk outside and talk to an atheist and he would get that word. A word that I can walk outside and talk to a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist, any creed, any dogma, any liberals, Democrats, conservative, ultra-conservative, any politician, anyone, and they would be able to get that word immediately, provided they have some kind of high school education, maybe even elementary, depending if they're prodigies or not. Intuition. I want to use the word intuition in substitute of the word faith. Yes, that sounds about right. I want to use the word intuition. Now, here's why I want to use intuition, because I researched intuition. I found that intuition has a plethora of meanings. But what stuck out to me was that one meaning stuck out to me. It says direct access into the unconsciousness. I'll say that again. Your intuition is your direct access into your unconsciousness, into your unconscious, into the unconscious. I'll go one even further. Another meaning I came across, intuition is being able to acquire knowledge without knowing how that knowledge was acquired. I'll say it again. Intuition, the ability to acquire, to perceive, to comprehend, understand knowledge without knowing how that knowledge was acquired. Sounds paradoxical and contradictory, doesn't it? But doesn't that sound kind of like sort of something like faith? Intuition is the ability for you to acquire some information, but don't know how you acquired it. Do you see the relationship with faith there? Is it me, or is there some kind of intuition? I'll say it again. The ability to know something, but don't know how you knew it. It's the ability for you to gain access to information that does not pertain to the senses. One more time. Intuition is your ability to gain information from the unconscious, from your unconscious. You're not even aware. It's your ability to gain information out of the unconscious stuff that you're made of without you knowing how you gained that information. It's one more time. Intuition is your ability to gain information, to acquire a certain skill set, intellectual skill set, to acquire this intellectual skill set, this intellectual information without proof, without evidence, and without knowing how you acquired that information. People, I think intuition and faith, brothers and sisters, or sisters and brothers, or uncles and whatever family tree you want to couch them in, they're related. Your intuition and your faith has a symbiotic relationship. They walk hand in hand, left foot, right foot, left foot. Faith is the evidence of things you cannot see. Intuition comes and say, you have knowledge that you have no proof, no evidence. There's a word called empirical data, or just empirical. Empirical means the information you have has been acquired based off experience, experiments, and observation. So you can back up the data you have empirically, meaning you have observed it, you have experimented with it, tested, tried it, experienced it. You have proof. Empirical data, empirical. Intuition says, I can give you this information. It's facts. It's canonical. Canon. It's canonized, right? It's canonized, meaning it has been authentically signed, sealed, and approved by the gods of the universe, right? And when I say gods, I'm just being facetious. I don't believe in multiple gods. I'm just being facetious. Take it as a bantering. The truth, though, is this. Intuition says, I can give you the same authenticity as empirical information, but I don't have any data. I don't have any proof. I don't even know how I got this information. But when that information is put up for critical analytical assessment and evaluation, that information will be consistently logical, rational, and it will be consistent with the empirical information. But yet, it's intuition. Intuition, therefore, is the birth child. In my research, my conclusion, intuition, your intuition is the birth child or the offspring of the word faith. They're one and the same. So this is why Paul says we walk by faith, not by sight. Things that we see are temporal. Things that we can't see are eternal. And the things that are eternal are the things that pertain to the invisible realm. And we all know, if we study science long enough, that that's what every scientist meditate upon day and night. The invisible stuff called matter, called atoms, called quarks, bosons, Higgs fields, called protons, neutrons, neutrons, protons, electrons, all invisible stuff, what makes up matter. This is what scientists stay up night after night, burning their candles, trying to discover research upon top of research upon top of research. And here we have it in the Bible. So this is why the Apostle Paul says we walk by faith and not by sight. Walk by your intuition. You have an inner guide, an inner compass that allows you to tap into the unconscious, what you are not aware of. Metacognition, another term I came across maybe a week ago. Meta means beyond. Cognition means pertaining to the faculties of your mind. Metacognition means this: cognitive of your cognition, knowing of your knowing, being aware of your awareness. I'll say that again. Metacognition means you are cognitive of your cognition. That cognitive of your cognition means you are aware of the faculties and powers of your mind. It's called mind mapping, knowing what each part of your brain, the frontal lobe, the occipital lobe, the neocortex, the cortex, the various parts of your brain, knowing what each part is responsible for. That's called cognitive cognition. The limbic system, the amygdala, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the suprachiasmatic nuclei, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, knowing what all mind mapping, understanding what each part of the brain is responsible for, metacognition, cognitive of your cognition, knowing about your knowing, becoming aware of your awareness. When you are aware of what you are aware, you're now doing, you're on a whole nother level of thinking. You're thinking on a 5th, 6th, 7th dimension level. You're on a whole nother level of thinking. When you become aware of what you are aware, you are aware of your awareness. I'll say it again. You are aware of your awareness. Now you're on a whole nother level of thinking. You're on a whole nother level. I can go on all day and give you more, but I'm going to end it right now because I don't want to feed you too much because then you're going to throw up. Till next time. Peace.
When I was a young boy, growing up in Augustown, we ate from the same pot. We were Indians all around. From Gola to calling all around, but Jah helped me to stand my ground. Only Jah could have helped me to stand my ground. Though I never lived like He wanted, I was mindful of what He taught me. So now I beg and plead, I'm on my bending knee, 'cause Father, you rescued me, and I've got the scars to show. Barely made it along life's road, 'cause when my life got dark, you far, the light at the end of the road.